say, for example, we want AIs to actually execute these steps, how do we then work about permissioning, security, and making sure that we're following the best practices that previously existed in industry?
In every episode, we go beyond the war room stories to find out what reliability really means to the people who are building it. You have to log everything that's happening in that system. If you're making a change of some kind, that change must be auditable. Log what's happening. How do you roll it back if you don't know what happened?
But all the same, the discipline of making sure that the things that we solved, we don't have to solve again, is something I'm super passionate about.
Why don't we just back up for a minute? You mentioned runbooks and runbook automation, and let's dive into that a little bit.
Sometimes when I'm working on Cloud Code, it's really exciting to see how fast it can move.
Definitely. That ability to move fast is a double-edged sword, right? Where you can really break things fast. Welcome to Incidentally Reliable, the podcast by Xurrent, where we sit down with engineers, leaders, and operators who've lived through the hardest problems in site reliability. I'm your host, Jim Hirschauer. And in every episode, we go beyond the war room stories to find out what reliability really means to the people who are building it. So let's just jump straight in. I'm joined today by Zahan Parekh. Zahan, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Jim, and it's really great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too. So last time I saw you was at an SRE day. We met at SRE Day Austin.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun, just sitting in the room with fellow SRE enthusiasts and site reliability enthusiasts to talk about the cutting edge and just catch up. It was just a great time.
Yeah. How did you like the overall day? I'm always curious to get people's opinions on those types of events. So SRE Day, for anyone who isn't aware, is a 1 day, very short and packed full little day for SREs to come together. So how did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really liked the combination of things where it was like deep dive technical talks where we were sometimes looking at someone's GitHub, and other times it was just an overview and it involved the crowd. So like your talk was one of the more enjoyable ones where it actually involved the crowd and everybody sort of came to life. But in general, the distribution of things, they really do a great job organizing it. And I almost always come away having learned something new.
Yeah, so at SRE Day, I did present. I always enjoy those days. And I think the biggest benefit that anybody can get out of going to an SRE day is to really just interact with other people. I think the key is to learn from each other, meet people, network with them, and really make an effort to talk about, the challenges that people are facing and share stories and share solutions amongst fellow SREs. So to me, that's what makes something like SRE Day a really great day, is that people can interact with each other.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, let's talk about you a little bit. I'd love to hear more about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you work?
Absolutely. So at the moment, I'm building a company called Gimic, which does runbook automation for SREs who have well-documented repetitive tasks which are bogging them down. So for work like scaling, descaling your services, stuck workflow reruns, deployment rollbacks, API access requests, I build one-click solutions that the engineer can choose to accept, reject, or modify. And it shows up within the ITSM, so the IT Service Management Platform, or within Slack where they work. I had this idea when I was an Amazon software development engineer building transaction processing systems, where because of the importance of that service, we tended to see a large number of tickets which had importance and a large number of repetitive tickets. So it got me thinking about how I can sort of separate the two and try to automate away the repetitive tickets so that engineers can focus on what's important.
All right. And why don't we just back up for a minute? You mentioned runbooks and runbook automation, and let's dive into that a little bit. So let's just define it in case anyone is listening who hasn't heard the term runbook before. What really is a runbook?
Absolutely. So a runbook is a series of steps in the context of DevOps, which a site reliability engineer uses to execute toward a certain outcome. So for example, if the outcome required was baking a cake, the run book would actually be the set of ingredients required, like eggs, flour, water, and the bake time. So set it in the microwave for X number of minutes. I have to say I'm not the best at baking cakes, but I promise I'm better with actual run books. And so that would be the analogy there if the outcome was actually baking a cake.
Okay. All right, great. So a series of steps. We want to automate these. Is this similar to a workflow? Because I've heard the term workflow a lot. Is a run book and a workflow, are they the same things? Are there different things? How would you describe those?
So to me, the runbook is the documented set of steps, which is hosted on, say, Confluence, for example, or a team's internal wiki. And the workflow is the execution of those steps by the technician. So they are related concepts, but that's the distinction in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. When I worked in IT a very long time ago, I was on IT operations, and our operations center was provided with run books. Whenever we would bring a new service into production, part of the job of bringing that to production was to provide these run books. And invariably, these things were out of date, right? And so even if they were up to date when they first made it into production, which was honestly kind of rare, they quickly got out of date. So I think that's another important concept here of like, how do you keep these run books up to date once you have a run book? What's the best practice on making sure that run book doesn't get stale?
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic question. So to start, the reason my product tries to help with the repetitive, well-documented work is because work like scaling or descaling a service doesn't tend to change all that much. So for those run books, they actually, in my experience, tend to stay static. But there is work, as you said, where the run book automatically changes a lot. And actually at the SRE day, I was speaking to some folks who suggested that maybe there's a way for the run books to automatically and intelligently learn from audit trails and logs. So while it's something I can't promise yet, it's something I'm certainly looking into at an active level. And that would be an awesome way to see these run books come to life and stay up to date automatic as well. Because right now it does involve a human having to go in and modify the run book whenever appropriate.
Yeah. And with all the buzz and all the rage around AI right now, it sounds like this might be a perfect use case for AI.
It absolutely does. And I'm just really excited to dive into it and experiment around and see if it's even possible.
Yeah. Great. You also mentioned something else that really perked up my attention. You mentioned human in the loop. And human in the loop to me is one of those absolutely critical concepts right now. And this ties in with runbook automation and it ties in with AI. And maybe in a second, we'll have a little bit of a conversation about AI and automation because it's a very interesting place right now. Two very different things that people are sort of lumping into the same category. But human in the loop, adjudication, right? When there's a run book that needs to be executed and there's a decision that needs to be made of, do we execute that run book? Is that the right thing to do at this moment in time? There was definitely conversation about that at the SRE day that we attended. What do you think about that? Obviously, you have human in the loop built into your product, but what are the implications there?
So the way I see the importance of executing these tasks is, given that these are mission critical services that I'm trying to help out with, for example, transaction processing, but equally important workflows in healthcare, etc., also applicable. The margin for error is low. And so to me, at the beginning, at least, to execute these runbooks, humans ought to stay in the loop for the purpose of trust. And also because, as we know, if it is fully autonomous, there is a chance of mistakes. And when it's a service as important as with a business critical use case like processing transactions, it actually for trust, it's better if things move marginally slower, but are absolutely correct. And therefore, I find that having a human in the loop, choosing whether to accept, modify, or reject our given one-click steps is a healthy compromise. And if we're seeing that almost all steps are accepted, then maybe we start to get into a conversation with partners at that point and say, hey, do you guys want to see more of this automated? But I think as a starting point, it's absolutely necessary to have a senior in the room choosing whether or not these steps get executed on live services.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the SRE, the decision making of SREs is the really important part here. Leaving the decisions up to AI to just automatically decide that the AI is going to execute some action within an environment, I think is probably the last thing we want to do right now. I was having an interesting discussion about this yesterday internally at Xurrent. We have these conversations all the time. And we were talking about the difference between deterministic and probabilistic. And automation, as it's been for the past 20 years, maybe even more than 20 years at this point, is deterministic. It's like the same thing is going to happen every time because there's really there's only a single path through most automation. But AI has brought in a new probabilistic version of automation where AI might do things differently every single time, or maybe 5 times out of 10, it's going to do something one way and the other 5 times something a different way. So for some things, maybe that's okay. But in the world that we play in reliability, that doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
No, I absolutely plus one that. It doesn't sound like a good idea at the start for sure that AI ought to make decisions when it's something as important as reliability. I mean, it's in the name. These services need to run to have our modern, technologically native life be the way it is. Yeah. But having said that, I find it's equally so important to think about play the thought experiment through of how, say, for example, we want AIs to actually execute these steps. Like, how do we then work about permissioning and the security and making sure that we're following the best practices that previously existed in industry?
You bring up a great point here. So my background is in highly regulated industries, financial services. I spent a lot of time in the financial services industry. And so governance, compliance, audit were such important topics for us. So give me your thoughts on that. How do you see that playing in with runbooks that you're working on now, with AI making decisions? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I think this, in terms of as an industry, there's solutions here which are best practices, like least privileged access, which even as an engineer, when I was implementing work, my access would be no greater than, for example, my bosses or that which is necessary. So I would only have the necessary resources to complete the set of steps that are needed to execute the work. Similarly, if there's an agent in my shoes, they ought to have only the least privileged access and not be running wild within these services. Equally, auditability, as you said in your previous roles, was crucial. Auditability, where the actions executed by the agent ought to be a part of the same traces and logs, but clearly marked that they were executed autonomously. Even alongside the implementer who executed them, just so that the learning for the implementer can be there as soon as it becomes clear if anything has gone wrong. So these are things which I think as an industry have been solved and actually just need to be applied to the use case of agents. What do you think of
I think it's critical as companies are really diving much deeper into the AI world. We cannot forget about governance. I think it's probably the thing that really we should start with. We need to get our governance in order before we let systems start making any changes, even simple changes. in an environment, let's say we want AI to initiate changes within an environment that are going to be fairly benign, that still needs an audit to go along with it. Like you have to log everything that's happening in that system. If you're making a change of some kind, that change must be auditable. Like you said, log what's happening. How do you roll it back if you don't know what happened, right? And then
Exactly.
when things go wrong, we really depend upon these audit trails and these log files. So 100% agreement with you. I think it's a situation where if you don't do the hard governance work up front, and you just kind of jump in and start using AI, it's really going to bite a lot of companies that they're going to have a lot of situations come up that they don't like, that they don't know how to get themselves out of.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's exciting I sometimes when I'm working on cloud code, it's really exciting to see how fast it can move. But all the same, the discipline of making sure that the things that we solve, we don't have to solve again, is something I'm super passionate about. And it seems like we share that passion.
Yeah, definitely. That ability to move fast is a double-edged sword, right? Where you can really break things fast if we let it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then at that point, when things break, we definitely rely on human implementers and technicians to fix things at that point. So
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we spoke about some interesting things here from the tech side of the house. I really love to jump into the human side of things as well. So, in the SRE world, a big topic is burnout, and it's terrible when I hear about people who are experiencing burnout. I always like to find out how anyone who comes on the show, how do you de-stress? How do you relax and just forget about tech for a little while?
Absolutely. So for me, and this is throughout life as a child, in college, and even during a 24-hour on-call shift when I can, I like to squeeze in a little bit of guitar session. So like maybe nice. 10 to 15 minutes just to blow off some steam. Sometimes I won't even sing the words, but I'll strum along to maybe a Beatles song or Guns N' Roses. And I find it really kind of just helps me find my center again. And that's the low time commitment. And otherwise, I'm trying to be consistent about squash. So I like to get out there and get a quick sweat in. And I find just having a couple of hobbies that I can sort of pin during the week as much as possible, travel permitting and schedules permitting. I like to hold on to those and it helps me really reset and centralize.
Great. Yeah. Some physical movement and some playing of guitar. Let's transition back to guitar really quickly, because like I said, I play and I 100% get what you're saying with the de-stress. I don't know really what it is, but yeah, in 15 minutes of playing guitar, like my whole world outlook can change. And I don't know, do you think it's something about just playing music? What do you think it is?
I think for me, it sort of unlocks happy times in my life. And it does so immediately because it was a very social activity growing up. I'm not ashamed to admit I played in a high school cover band.
Nice. That's awesome.
The awesome cliche.
That's great.
It was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And it kind of unlocks that rapidly. There must be something evolutionary about music that just makes us sort of relax. And I'm sure you feel it too. I'm just so excited to know, like, what kind of guitars and music are you into?
So I have a couple of electric guitars personally. I have David Thomas McNaught is one of mine. He's a small boutique builder out in North Carolina. And I used to live in North Carolina. So I bought one from him and it's an amazing guitar. I love it. I also have a semi hollow body guitar from Godin Guitars up in Canada. And it's like cross between acoustic and electric. So it has an electric, like a humbucker pickup in it. It's got a piezo pickup as well for the acoustic side of things. And I can, like, with a little slider, I can control how much of a mixture between those. So that's a very versatile guitar that I like the sound of. How about yourself? What do you play?
It's so cool to see you have some custom builds. I have an American Strat. Actually, I have it right here. I keep it by my desk. So
Oh, yeah, show it to us.
But this is the American
beautiful.
Strat.
It's like that classic cream color American Strat.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
Clapton inspired for sure.
Exactly.
And it has the rust on the pickups at the moment, which perhaps not the best for the sound, but it's a matter of how long I've really had this thing, and to me,
unless you have a guitar tech living at home, you're probably going to get some rust on your pickups. It just happens,
Exactly. I've had this since I lived in Bombay, where like it's just tropical climates and the rust seeps into everything. But this guitar is I love this thing basically, and I've had it forever.
Well, it's a beautiful guitar. If anyone is just listening and not seeing, just if you know who Eric Clapton is, if you've ever seen a photo of Eric Clapton with a cream colored Stratocaster, that's exactly what it looked like. So you can now hopefully visualize that in your head. And thank you for sharing everything that you shared on the show today. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you. Again, we've been speaking with Zahan. Your company is Gimic. Is that correct? Do you want to spell that so people can go to the website?
Sure, it's GIMIC, Gimic, okay. And the website can be found on my LinkedIn. I have it front and center over there.
All right, we'll add your LinkedIn and a link to the website in the show notes, so that anyone who has the show notes from the podcast can jump to there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Jim. And it's just been a pleasure to catch up again. So fun to hear about your custom guitars. And hopefully we get to hang out in person again at another SRE day or otherwise.
Absolutely. I hope so. I'll be there for sure. So I hope to see you there. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it. That's a wrap on this episode of Incidentally Reliable. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, do me a favor, please subscribe and leave us a review. Those reviews, they really help other people in the reliability community to find the show. So until next time, take care, and may your on-call be incident-free.